Our resident money man, the money authority from Barnett Company is joining us. Chris Hopkins is here. Chris,
Chip,
good to see you, brother.
good morning. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, sir. Several questions, and I want to begin with probably and arguably the biggest economic announcement we've seen here in a while, and that is the expansion of the Volkswagen plant. How's that going to impact our economy here?
It's a slam dunk, to tell you the truth. If you think about, they just celebrated their 10-year anniversary.
Right.
They're up to about 3,500 employees, and think about, for every one of those jobs directly created, there's at least 2 or 3 more Tennessee jobs spun off. So by the time they finish this expansion, Volkswagen is going to be responsible for 15, 16, 17,000 jobs and an economic impact of maybe $600, $700 million a year to Tennesseans.
Wow, that's serious money.
Yep.
Now, you were talking about the support jobs for each Volkswagen employee.
Right.
And that goes, that domino chain, if you will, I mean, down to folks building new homes for the Volkswagen employers or employees. It branches off in so many areas.
Oh, just think about education, think about just infrastructure, the gas stations, grocery stores, home building. Parts suppliers, you know, this is going to give VW enough mass now to attract suppliers to come here instead of buying from them where they'll locate plants locally. So it's a tremendous story.
Now, what about the electric impact? As Volkswagen makes the shift, and other car makers are too, to electric vehicles or hybrids at least, how could that impact us here in the Tennessee Valley and TVA in particular?
Well, obviously the demand and power will be good for the utility companies and the generators, so TVA benefits. But think about the other side of that. Down the road, you know, economists are suggesting that global petroleum demand is going to start to fall within the next 2 or 3 years. So oil demand falls, oil prices fall. Guess what else falls? The price at the pump. Right. So that's another economic benefit, unless you happen to be in the oil patch or you're living. But for the economy, broadly speaking, it's very positive, and for Tennessee and Chattanooga as well.
That is certainly some welcome news to hear. Speaking of the demand for gas at the pumps, we've seen the prices keep going down and down and down. A little bump up before the holidays, but that's typical. What do you think is going to happen longer term as far as the price of gas?
You know, I think we're in that trend, that long-term downtrend. You'll have these little spikes, but if you think about what's happened with global supply and now the U.S., by 2020 we're going to produce more oil, gas, and liquids than Saudi Arabia and Russia combined.
Wow.
Now, nobody saw that coming. So supply increases, demand is steady or starts to fall. Oil makes up half the price of gasoline. So oil falls 40%, which is what happened. Gas prices fall by 20%.
Which benefits all of us who have to fill up the
it's like a
once
tax
or twice
break,
a week.
essentially.
Sure, it definitely is. All right, let's hop overseas for a moment. With Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit plan rejection, what ripples do you think that'll have to the economy here in America?
Well, it still depends on whether or not they cut a deal before the deadline, but that's March 29th. It's right around the corner.
Right.
So the risk is they don't agree on a plan. They have a disorderly exit from the European Union, and then all of a sudden, overnight, the UK cannot import or export products. Half of their food comes from other EU countries. People can't travel freely across the border like they used to. So the UK economy basically collapses into zero growth. That feeds back into the global economy. They're a huge trading partner of ours. So, you know, my estimate is if that happens, a disorderly Brexit, it may knock a half a point or so off GDP growth for next year, which is already beginning to slow. Yeah. And it'll be noticeable.
What do you think if it is a favorable exit plan?
Yeah, I think the odds are it's in everyone's interest to work a deal. It's in the EU's interest. It's in the UK's interest. They still think it's likely, and if that happens, there'll be some disruption, but I think the impact on the U.S. economy in that event will be really quite minimal.
Let's talk about the stock market for just a second. This bull market has been running for how long now? Yeah, 9 years?
Yeah,
it's been a while.
2009, so 10 years now.
So it's been the longest running bull market.
Right.
That can't go on forever.
Well, and we've seen throughout last year, we had the first down year in a long time last year. Wasn't down much, but we're starting to see some of the weight of, you know, geopolitical risk and the fact that nothing trees don't grow to the sky, as they say. Nothing goes on forever. So, you know, I think most analysts expect this to be a reasonably good year, but, you know, towards the end of 2019, just the weight of 10 or 11 years starts to weigh. The cycle has to turn at some point. So this year looks pretty good.
And you have talked forever about the market periodically has its corrections.
Absolutely.
But there's still never been no 20-year cycle where the market hadn't come out on top.
Oh, that's quite right. If you look at a long enough time horizon, there is no single 20-year period where.
All right. I want to talk also about briefly for about a minute or so on the government shutdown. Longest one in history, 34, 35 days. How's that going to impact the national economy? Obviously, the federal workers who didn't get a paycheck, they were hurt. But beyond that, what are your thoughts?
Well, the early estimates are that it directly cost the economy about $11 or $12 billion. There are indirect costs associated with that. So, and some of that you'll make up as paychecks start to flow. So think probably in terms of if we were going to grow at 2.4% for the quarter, we're going to grow at 2.2. I mean, it's measurable and it's disruptive, but in terms of its overall impact, assuming we don't do it again in 3 weeks, then I think we get past it and we look back and the overall economic impact is relatively small.
All right, final question. Super Bowl, who are you picking?
Well, I guess I got to go with LA since that's where I grew up.
All right, good enough. Always good to see you, Chris Hopkins. Thank you so much. You can find out more about Chris Hopkins and the great work he does and the great work they do at Barnett and Company. They're just down the road at 1300 Broad Street. Call them at 756-0125 and the website barnettandcompany.com. Speaking of Super Bowl, if you're hungry, we've got some delicious food ideas that'll help you maintain your New Year's weight resolution. We'll visit with our friends from CHI Memorial coming up.